think you can trust that Kelly can steer the ship. And we do have the chat on the right. If there's any questions, you can direct any questions to all panelists or to myself, and happy to answer.
Thank you so much.
Okay, the live stream started. I'm going to take us out of practice mode, and then I will hit record.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our DOE Roundtable on a national blueprint for lithium batteries. As you know, last week we released a blueprint that lays out how we can strengthen and secure the lithium battery supply chain, which is critical for our clean energy economy. And today we are joined by Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, who's going to speak more about the importance of this supply chain. We are also joined by Congressman Mike Doyle, representing the 18th District of Pennsylvania. I know this is a really important issue for him. And of course, we're joined by 8 members of industry, each representing a segment of this chain. Dr. Glenn Murfield, Vice President and Chief Technical Officer of Albemarle Corporation. Jonathan Evans, President and CEO, Lithium Americas. Dr. Subra Hurl, Director, Applied Materials. Chuck Sutton, Vice President of FBR Sales, REC Silicon. Doug Campbell, Chief Executive Officer of Solid Power. Lindsey Garl, Chief Executive Officer of Core Power. And Joe Mendelsohn, Senior Counsel, Tesla. And one more, JB Straubel, Co-founder and CEO, Redwood Materials. I'm Kelly Speaks-Bachman. I'm the Acting Assistant Secretary of DOE's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. And now, without further ado, I will pass the mic happily to Secretary Granholm.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thanks to you all for joining us. I just want to give a special warm shout out to Congressman Mike Doyle. Your leadership on clean energy and on supply chain independence are big reasons why we're convening today. So thank you so much. So let me start by saying there's a good chance that the devices that everybody is using to tune in today are powered by lithium batteries. Obviously, technology's become central to our 21st century life, and its importance is only growing. And because lithium batteries don't just power our smartphones and our laptops, they're the guts of the electric vehicle and of large-scale storage systems for renewably powered energy. And so it means that they are essential components to this clean energy transition and to job creation, as you have heard the president talk about, and to competitiveness, and certainly in our fight against climate change. So the president has set very big goals for climate action, cutting emissions 50 to 52% by the end of this decade, on the way to reaching 100% clean electricity by 2035 and net zero carbon emissions by 2050. We just will not be able to accomplish these goals without lithium batteries. But here's the thing, and what we're all concerned about is that right now, China is the only country with control over every tier of the supply chain for critical materials, including lithium. They have 80% of raw material refining capacity, and here again, the US has virtually none. And if we remain reliant on imports, we just will not be able to compete in the global market for clean energy technologies. And that market, as many of you know, is going to hit at a minimum $23 trillion by the end of this decade. So we just can't afford to miss out. Our economic competitors are certainly gunning to be able to corner that market, and we cannot stand idly by while that happens, not when the potential to create millions, literally millions and millions of jobs for Americans hangs in the balance. So President Biden wants to make sure that we are competing and winning in this market. And to move us toward that goal, as Kelly said, last week, the administration released this national blueprint for lithium batteries, 2021 to 2030. The blueprint is really part of a whole of government approach to shoring up domestic battery production. So we joined with the Departments of Commerce and Defense and the Department of State in developing this strategy for building out our domestic supply chain. So together, we're calling for a national effort that is really going to channel American ingenuity and policy and our major investments so that we can start making these batteries right here at home using American labor. So that blueprint, it covers everything. It covers mining, it covers processing, manufacturing, recycling, and each one of those steps, offers us a new opportunity to create good paying jobs across the country. The blueprint identifies key objectives for us to focus our efforts around over the next 9 years. So the objectives are from discovering and developing alternatives to various critical minerals, to building out materials processing capacity, to making big investments in research and development and STEM education and workforce training, and identifying where in the US we might be able to actually do responsible mineral extraction. So there's so much more in the report. I encourage you all to give it a read after today's event. You can actually download it at the link in the chat. But one of the key takeaways you'll pick up on is that we have to get started like yesterday, right away, because we've got our work cut out for us. And a lot of these are major investments that often take years to start up. So it's why today I'm really very happy to announce a series of funding, a new series from our Vehicle Technologies Office to our national labs. So over the next 5 years, the Vehicles Office is going to aim to fund over $200 million in research on next generation batteries and on charging infrastructure and on connected and automated vehicles. And so that effort is going to complement the combined $162 million in funding we announced in April, which is now backing innovative solutions to reduce emissions and increase efficiencies for on and off-road vehicles, along with our latest super truck program, which is all about electrifying medium and heavy duty trucks. And that means we're building another market for these batteries. And of course, our geothermal office is already running a $4 million prize for projects and technologies to show us how to extract lithium from byproducts we get through geothermal energy generation. So with the American Jobs Plan, and if for those of you who have not weighed in on this, sent out some social media on it or whatever, this American Jobs Plan means that we're going to put billions more behind lithium battery technologies, critical mineral extraction, and more. So weigh in, please. But in the face of a challenge this big and this urgent, we need all the help we can get. We are going to be announcing I can't make any news about this, but just a little hint that we are going to be announcing a critical public-private partnership to focus on the lithium battery supply chain very soon. So stay tuned for more on that. But in the meantime, we do have a great conversation planned for you all today. Along with Congressman Doyle, we are joined by so many representatives of major players in the lithium battery supply chain. We'll discuss the challenges and the opportunities and all the ways we can work together to accomplish the goals that have been laid out in the National Blueprint for Lithium Batteries. So we got a lot to cover. Without further ado, let me turn it back over to Kelly.
Thank you, Secretary Granholm. It's so exciting that how we've just really gotten immediately to work in funding these projects to help support this effort. And now it's my honor to turn it over to Congressman Doyle for some remarks. Congressman Doyle is on the House Energy and Commerce Committee, so I am sure he has a myriad of things to say about this issue. Congressman Doyle.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. And Secretary Granholm, thanks for hosting this roundtable, and thanks for inviting me to participate. I think the administration's commitment to bringing back manufacturing and ensuring that we have supply chains we need here in the United States is not only commendable, but something we absolutely have to do. Over the last year, we've seen how critical it is to have a domestic supply chain for many products, from nose swabs to lumber. Every sector has faced supply shortages. And obviously, we hope there's never another global pandemic that shuts down shipping and commerce. But the pandemic revealed some critical vulnerabilities in key supply chains. This is a problem not only during a global pandemic, but for our future economic competitiveness. Right now, China has an incredible 100 battery mega factories built or planned, and more critical mineral reserve rights than any other country. Meanwhile, the United States has plans for something like 9 mega factories. Moreover, we are leaving our industries vulnerable to supply chain disruption, making our companies less competitive and foregoing thousands of good-paying manufacturing jobs in communities that really need them. This is a matter not only of national security, but of economic prosperity. If we don't have the supply chains of critical minerals and materials and the capability to manufacture critical infrastructure, we will never be able to outcompete China, Japan, and our European friends. Now, I know there are many industry partners here at the table today, and that's encouraging, but it will also take a strategic investment by the federal government in concert with industry to stand up more domestic manufacturing capability. I strongly believe we must invest right now, not only because of the national security implications, but because the electrical vehicle market and the energy storage market are set to rapidly expand. Because of great commitments and successes at companies like Tesla, Ford, and GM, as well as the need for greater battery storage capability in a world with more distributed energy, no sector is in a better position to take advantage of federal investment like the electric vehicle and energy storage industries. That's why I'm so pleased that President Biden and Secretary Granholm have made investing in domestic manufacturing and fixing these supply chain shortfalls a priority. And I know that you have committed partners in Congress intent on making the right investments. And may I say, Madam Secretary, that is on both sides of the aisle and in the House and in the Senate. At the battery manufacturing level, I've introduced the Energy Storage Tax Incentive and Deployment Act to incentivize energy storage development. Senators Manchin and Stabenow have released their update to the 48C manufacturing credit, and Representative Brendan Boyle is leading the 48C charge in the House. But I think it's critical that we also ensure that we're investing in the mid-tier supply chain, battery materials processing, and component manufacturing. It doesn't make any sense to me that we would continue shipping critical materials to China to be processed only for those components to be sent back to us here in the United States to be put in cars. We have the technical know-how, the skilled workforce, and the manufacturing facilities to do all of this in the United States. That's why I'm working on a bill to provide $10 billion in grant funding for companies to build or retool factories to process materials and manufacture battery components. We have the best chemical manufacturing facilities in the world. We should put them to use processing battery materials. We have factories all over the Rust Belt. With a little investment can be reopened as component manufacturing facilities. And all of this can lead to a renaissance of manufacturing in America. I was very pleased to see that the White House included such a grant program in its American Jobs Plan fact sheet, and that the Battery Supply Chain Review and National Blueprint for Lithium Batteries noted that grant funding to rebuild our manufacturing were critical pieces of building up our domestic battery supply chain. So having all these industry stakeholders here at the table is also great to see, as we will need private investment to continue to grow as we build out a reliable supply chain. I believe that battery manufacturing industry can be an example to others that with federal investment in key areas, the private sector can bring back manufacturing to the United States, and that would be great for our economy and great for our workers. Madam Secretary, I look forward to the discussion and to working with the White House and the congressional leadership to get my grant proposal and other good supply chain investments passed into law. Thank you, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Congressman. It's so inspiring to hear your passion on this topic. I have followed your work for a while, and I'm really just so grateful for your service. And so now I'd like to go one by one between our other panelists and hear what their segments of the supply chain are working on. We'll start with Dr. Murfeld. Glenn?
Hey, terrific. It really is an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the kind invitation. I'm joining you from Charlotte, North Carolina this morning. That's the location of Albemarle Corporation. It's the headquarters to our global specialties chemical company. We have leading positions in lithium bromine, and refining catalysts. We really are a values-driven company, and we're committed to do the right things the right way. And that's really just an awesome place to start this conversation. And, just building upon that, we're the world's largest producer of lithium. We have the broadest range of resources, manufacturing capabilities, products, and customer relationships in the industry. So we operate across a diversity of hard rock and brine lithium resource. And we do that in the United States, and we do it around the world. This really gives us a unique position to understand the opportunities and challenges in the lithium space. Now, we're continuously advancing new technologies for lithium extraction and purification. Additionally, we're innovating new lithium products to make battery technologies better, to make batteries longer life, safer, make your EVs longer range. So our vertical integration reaches from mine to lithium product derivatives. And additionally, we have really strong customer collaborations. This gives us, some deep insight to what the global market needs. And it also gives us insight on what viable technology paths are necessary to meet them. So currently, Albemarle is the only US company producing battery-grade lithium salts from a US resource. And we're the only US-based producer of lithium metal anodes and other novel materials that are really going to enable the next frontier of lithium-ion battery performance. It's from really this unique position that we see tremendous opportunity for the US to build a resilient and competitive supply chain for lithium-ion batteries. We have an opportunity to reset the paradigm of Asia's centralized battery production and really to create world-leading technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murfeld. Next, we have Dr. Subra Hurl. You're on mute. Webster's phrase of the year.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning to all. It's my honor to address this illustrious panel. At the outset, I'd like to thank the DOE, David Howell, for the invitation. It's my honor to represent Applied Materials and address the questions posed to me. In what ways can the federal government facilitate and accelerate the innovation and scale-up process? As you all know, Applied Materials is a global semiconductor equipment manufacturer. We are located headquarters in Bay Area, and I'm talking from Mountain View today. US does not have a complete supply chain for lithium-ion battery manufacturing. However, US has the cutting-edge technology pieces, but there is no path to manufacture in high volume today. Government can help bring pieces together in one place to make this happen, help increase the innovation, technology readiness level, and integration. But it cannot be a me-too technology, which current Asian suppliers already have. Government can help fund the supply chain consortium of stakeholders across the value chain. It has been done in semitech, in semiconductor industry some time ago, with the aim of developing a common roadmap, pool the innovation to accelerate qualification of advanced battery and demonstrate most advanced battery technology on the planet. Help establish a path to prove the technology at 1 gigawatt-hour manufacturing scale. Now we can see that it's not the megawatt-hour, it's all gigawatt-hour numbers we are talking about. The output of this gigawatt-hour factory can be utilized to support critical DoD needs and few early adopters. Definitely, this will be expensive in the beginning. Government can provide incentive to US manufacturing current bill of materials while protecting the IP. Once it is proven at scale, expand these factories domestically first, create US jobs, and then we can ready to take US technology globally. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Hurl. Next, let's turn to Chuck Sutton. Chuck?
Good morning, and thank you, Secretary Granholm, for this opportunity to discuss batteries and the need for a strong domestic supply chain. We're very pleased to see the Department of Energy and the administration working on this. REC Silicon is a provider of silicon gases and polysilicon that goes into semiconductors, flat panel, thin film transistor displays, solar energy, and also into these new lithium batteries. We have factories located in Butte, Montana, and Moses Lake, Washington State. Our material goes into just about every area of the grid, transportation, electrification that the administration is looking towards. Our Butte, Montana factory is the largest supplier of silane gas worldwide. In Washington state, we spent $1.7 billion building a state-of-the-art, low-carbon solar-grade polysilicon plant. To date, because we lack the strong manufacturing base and supply chain, the majority of our products go overseas and are used in the production of other electronics power devices. Then they have to be sent back to the US and sold into the market. We have the opportunity for these materials and these technologies to be built here at home. Unfortunately, our Washington plant has been negatively affected by the US-China solar tariffs and is currently idle. However, it has a significant amount of silane gas available to support a US battery supply chain. Our silane gas is used in anode portion of the lithium-ion batteries. With the silane converted to silicon along with the graphite, it can increase the power density of the battery, which in turn increases the range of the electric vehicle. Having 2 commercial scale REC silane gas plants in the US gives us a great start to produce silicon graphite anodes here. The investment in infrastructure typically takes years to put together. Having witnessed firsthand what happens in solar cell production in the US industry, we feel strongly that offshoring of our manufacturing and jobs not happen to the battery industry. Our country can't wait for supply chain to grow organically through the market development alone. The government must step in and co-lead the effort with the industry. The key for the industry supporting the full supply chain from mining, material processing, cell production, and on. In-market incentives may spur consumer demand, but upstream supply would still continue to come from overseas if not invested in. In addition, we cannot get it done at cell and packaging alone. We must support the upstream segments. We strongly support the DOE's new call for direct investments in the upstream sector, and specifically cost-sharing grants to produce silane gas, lithium hydroxide anodes, cathodes, you name it, everything that makes up a battery. We think this is the quickest way to scale the industry. REC Silicon is pleased to be working with the other companies along the manufacturing supply chain as part of the Battery Materials and Technology Coalition. We're a group of silicon, graphite, nickel, lithium, battery compound, component manufacturing, also recycling companies are in there too. We're ready to build our projects in the US. We need the DOE's help to quickly ramp that up. Your release of the battery supply chain report is a wonderful first step in doing this. As we prepare to support the battery industry with our 2 silane plants, we'd love to sit down separately with the department, and discuss the lessons learned that we've got from our solar experience. And just thank you again for the opportunity today.
Appreciate that, Chuck. Thanks. Next, we have Doug Campbell. Doug.
Yes, good morning, all, and very honored to be included with this collection of distinguished panelists. So this is Doug Campbell. I am the CEO and co-founder of Solid Power. Solid Power is a Colorado-based leading developer of all solid-state batteries. For those of you who may not be quite as familiar, as the name implies, in a solid-state battery, you're replacing liquid electrolyte with a solid electrolyte. And it's really it's what solid state enables that has gotten industry so excited. I think we're all aware of the interest and improvements in energy for lithium-ion cells, both on a per unit mass and per unit volume basis. And solid state enables that by allowing new classes of electrode chemistries, such as what both Glenn and Subra have mentioned with metallic lithium anodes, but equally exciting is improvements in safety and calendar life. And as a consequence, there's just a huge amount of interest from the automotive industry in solid state battery development. And for Solid Power in particular, we have very deep partnerships with both BMW and Ford, of course, here in the United States. I think what we're most excited about is, and this is of course germane to the discussion today, is that for Solid Power to be successful, we require a lot of supply chain developments. And frankly speaking, that's an opportunity for the United States. Of course, many speakers have mentioned how right now the United States does not have a huge position in the supply chain for energy storage. We at Solid Power think with a solid state batteries coming online, that represents a huge opportunity because if we make those investments today, we can ensure that tomorrow we do have a very, very prominent position in the supply chain of tomorrow's energy storage. And we at Solid Power are incredibly proud of our position to really enable that. So again, thank you for including us.
Thank you, Doug. Next, we have Lindsey Garl. Lindsey.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be part of this very important future thinking roundtable. I am the CEO and co-founder of Core Power. We're a U.S. company that manufactures both NMC and LFP lithium-ion cells and are used in energy storage, e-mobility, and EV charging. We will be announcing our new U.S. Gigafactory site called the Coreplex very soon. Now, the word cell, which comes from the Latin word cella, meaning small room, is a basic structural, functional, and biological unit of all known living things. That is exactly the way I see the technology of a battery cell in relation to the growing battery and storage energy field. The end product and its users, whether it's electric vehicles, EV charging stations, or energy storage systems, all rely on this fundamental basic unit, which everything else is built from. The strength and capability of those end technologies rely on the quality and reliability of the cell. Just as the biological systems, without a strong, capable cell, you really have nothing. The cell is also a critical piece as it relates to the current discussions being held by government and the industry on the mid and upstream side regarding critical minerals and its associated supply chain. Often confused with their cousins, rare earth metals and minerals, critical minerals are not always or often rare. Lithium is not rare, but is critical because of the current need for it in battery cells. But the technology and advancement in research and alternatives may lead to different materials in 2, 5, or 10 years. Just as salt was one of the most critical minerals in the world was supplanted by technology, cathode, anode, and electrolyte chemistry and design is evolving exponentially. One should assume that the associated mineral and chemical inputs will evolve as well. In this regard, I think it would be most beneficial for the government, which is now going on, to work closely as possible with battery cell producers as we look 2, 5, and 10 years out, and focus on those technologies or material and chemical inputs that will be critical to the future battery cell designs. At Core Power, our chemical makeup of our cells continue to evolve, and we look forward and would be happy to be part of a public-private partnership. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsey. Next, we have Joe Mendelsohn.
Thanks, Assistant Secretary, and thanks to Madam Secretary for having us today, and the rest of the DOE for its excellent efforts on the supply chain report. As people may know, Tesla's mission is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy, and that's a mission that's necessary because of the climate crisis. But as the Secretary mentioned, it's also an economic opportunity. Just to put it in perspective, in 2012, Tesla employed roughly 3,000 people. Fast forward to 2021, we employ over 90,000 people, with the vast majority here in the United States. As operators of the world's biggest lithium-ion battery plant in Giga, Nevada, we know advanced batteries are a key component to that transition. And we're doing everything we can to make sure we onshore manufacturing. The batteries that are made in Nevada go into vehicles manufactured in California that are sold throughout North America and across the globe, as well as energy storage products. We're seeking to regionalize. If you caught our battery day, you saw we're looking at partnerships upstream on sustainable extraction in the United States. We're looking at developing innovative cathode that can be produced here in the U.S., as well as battery manufacturing efficiencies as we expand our facilities in the U.S., including a new battery line with a new battery cell in California, and soon to add work as we develop Giga Texas down in Austin, Texas. We know the limiting factor right now is cell capacity through the world and even in the U.S. We applaud the DOE for its work with the Loan Program Office and the Advanced Vehicle Technology Manufacturing Program, and certainly are working in partnership with suppliers and others who are located in the U.S. to get support through that program and start to reorient that supply chain domestically. We know it's not enough, though. DOE can't do it alone. I think, as the Secretary mentioned, the whole of government approach is right on. Congress and Congressman Doyle mentioned that Congress needs to step up and really support the entire ecosystem, on the processing side, especially as one all the way through manufacturing and down to recycling. If that investment's not made, we won't remain competitive with what the investments are going on in the rest of the world. So, we look forward and continue to work on that policy front. Lastly, just note, while we reorient the supply chain over the next decade, we also have to look at the near-term deployment. As the Secretary mentioned, we are in a critical situation. We support 100% EV sales by 2030. Even on that rapid transition, you don't decarbonize the light-duty sector until roughly 2047. So it has to happen now. And on the happening now front, we need to, frankly, also reorient our trade policies that in the near term create barriers to investing in advanced battery manufacturing here. The 301 tariffs, frankly, added 25% tax on upstream inputs right now into batteries. And at the same time, those tariffs allow a finished lithium-ion battery to come in from China at 7.5%. It's not exactly the stability and the investment atmosphere you want for folks to come in and expand advanced manufacturing here. Tesla's certainly going to continue to do that. We strive to do it every day, do it here at home. We're a very proud American company, and we look forward to working with all of you to reorient that supply chain and make sure we capture all that value stream. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks and for your input, Joe. Next we have JB Straubel.
Good morning. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. And my name is JB Straubel. I'm the CEO and founder at Redwood Materials. And we're a sustainable battery materials company and lithium battery recycling company. Prior to Redwood, I spent about 15 years at Tesla as the co-founder there and CTO there. So Joe, it's great to see you again. As part of the time that I spent there and the incredible growth in the industry, that was, I think, what really oriented me to focus more on the upstream supply chain. It's incredibly rewarding and exciting to see what's happening in the electrification vehicle markets, with Tesla and many others now, and so much growth happening, so much consumer excitement. But I think, as we've mentioned many times here, we have a pretty challenging supply chain problem in front of us. And not only is it a national competitiveness issue and a national, I'd say, security issue, but this is really an economic issue and an environmental issue as well. So it kind of touches all 3 or 4 different parts of this. I think the incredible goals for electrification that we all have and other parts of the world have, are slightly at risk, due to the limitations in the supply chain. Particularly, here in North America, but the rest of the world is not immune to this either. At Redwood Materials, one way that we can help alleviate this, and one opportunity that's particularly interesting in North America, is by putting really intense focus on resource recovery and making sure that we don't lose any resources that we already have in the product value chain, and also that we don't export them in ways that are not really benefiting our local competitiveness. So we're focusing very intensely on inventing the right technologies and scaling the technologies on how we most efficiently recover those materials from lithium-ion batteries, reuse them again with very, very high percent utilization. And those materials can get reused dozens, hundreds of times. So it's a really exciting, I think, economic opportunity for the country to invest in that type of closed loop economy. And we're hiring rapidly here. I'm talking to you from Northern Nevada, and we're hiring about 500 people here in just the next 1 or 2 years, and investing several $100 million into this particular area, into those recycling facilities, and scaling that up right now. So anyway, it's exciting to be part of the conversation, and couldn't be a more relevant topic for the whole country. Thank you.
Thank you, JB. And now for the rest of the event, we would like to conduct some Q&A, and the secretary will be asking our industry representatives some questions. So Secretary Granholm, would you like to start with a question for Glenn?
Sorry, I recognize that some of you have already addressed questions that are related to what I was going to ask, but I want to say this is your opportunity to advise the Secretary of Energy and her team about what you would do if you were us, given the unique situation of your industry. So Glenn, let me just start with you. So we know we don't have we need more mining, we need more responsible extraction, if you will. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, what can the US government do to support domestic sources, specifically of key battery materials like lithium?
Yeah, so, and thank you for the question and the opportunity. I'd start by first recognizing that because the US does not enjoy really the scale of high quality lithium resources found in other parts of the world, it really is incumbent on us to fully utilize the resources that we do have and do that really cost competitively and do it in a sustainable manner. And really, to achieve this, the US needs to support the development of technologies to improve lithium recovery and purification from resources. This can include things like direct lithium extraction technologies, ion exchange, solvent extraction. Additionally, though, we also need to support lithium material advancements that really will help us store as much energy as possible for every gram of active lithium material that we have access to. This is really important consideration. So, for example, if you move from conventional graphite battery anodes to lithium metal, it really offers the potential to double energy density, double the range of your EV, for example, and open up cost reductions as much as 50%. On both these examples I share, innovation is still needed to realize this potential. Then additionally, recycling will be a means to keep lithium within the circular economy of the US. JB, I think, nicely laid this out. But as such, recycled lithium will become a significant resource right alongside natural resource, and advancing the technologies for doing the type of separations, concentration, and repurification of lithium to the high standards of battery grade are going to be needed. So the US should really aim to leapfrog current technologies that create the future, rather than just to replicate what already exists in other parts of the world. So this really needs to span from resource extraction to advanced materials to end-of-life recycling. A US robust economy and supply chain will need to emphasize speed, collaboration, and innovation really to be self-sustaining and globally competitive. So thank you for your question.
Yeah, thanks so much. 1000%. Really appreciate the specificity there. And the need for innovation, right? So makes me ask Subra. Happy birthday, Subra, by the way. You discussed this a bit in your introduction about discovery and innovation and commercialization. So how would you advise us? We've got 17 national laboratories at DOE. In what ways can the federal government facilitate and accelerate, really, the innovation and the scale-up process?
Good question. Thank you, Secretary. When we look into the semiconductor industries, how it's evolved over the years and the maturity at which we are in today, and there are certain things has been implemented like semi-tech model. And the good thing is that in the United States, we have very good key materials technology. They identify new materials. National labs have been part of this for quite some time. The processing technology, there's a gap there. And manufacturing is the next generation factories needs to be installed with the advanced machines with artificial intelligence and things that kind of what we do in the semi industry. That has to be implemented right now. If you look into the lithium-ion manufacturing, it's kind of segmented. It's not some slurry making, the coating to drying, the electrode making, the formation, all those things aren't really standardized per se. and each industries, each company has its own processing technologies. But in the United States, the good thing is that we have the know-how of the materials, and we need to invest in the processing technology and the manufacturing piece of it, and bring all the parts together in a common roof or common location, so that the acceleration, the speed, and the innovation can be benefited in a shortest time span.
That's very helpful, the synergy of working in proximity. So thank you for that. And let me just popcorn it over to Chuck. So we just talked about research and innovation. Let's go to the applied side. How can the US really specifically assist with the foreign competitive challenges you raised, especially with respect to silane production and manufacturing here? How can we help?
Well, thank you for the question. As I mentioned earlier, REC spent $1.7 billion on a state-of-the-art energy efficient facility in Washington State for solar power. The Chinese government, they supported efforts to dominate that supply chain, and that caused REC to not have an end market to sell the material to. We can be competitive. The U.S. can be competitive in the markets, and the U.S. government understands that, but not all countries view competition the same way. So the U.S. government needs to consider this and the full supply chain, when setting policy. China's developing battery materials. They're going to develop the market. They will look for ways to dominate it. The U.S. government needs to use tools besides trade or loan guarantees to stimulate a U.S. manufacturing base. We'll need supports like grants, refundable tax credits to build out a supply chain that's robust enough and large enough to compete both on cost and scale. If the U.S. doesn't do that and support the complete supply chain, this material is going to end up being built in a foreign country, like China or somewhere else. So the support that you could give towards that would be greatly appreciated.
Appreciate you saying that. We all know, there's a lot of public reporting that China is using, for example, Uyghur labor, slave labor, essentially to make their silicon panels. And, how do we compete against that, right? So your point about not just globally bowing to the altar of low cost, which is a fight that we will not win unless we have partnerships, strategic partnerships, unless we have developed a strategic plan like China has done to corner the market. So we need to do our own aggressive investment in the United States in partnership with businesses to make you competitive, yes, inside the United States, but outside it as well. So thanks for that. Let me just pop over to Doug. You talked about obviously solid state batteries for transportation and stationary applications. I'm wondering, what are your hurdles that you are seeing, and how can we help you to fully commercialize these batteries?
It's pretty simple. Supply chain. I'll take it back to, I'll circle back to a statement that Glenn made, which is that, look, what we do here in the United States better than, frankly speaking, anyone else in the world is we innovate. We are the leading innovators in the world. But the challenge that we face is keeping the production of those future innovations here in the United States. And to put it in very simple terms, it is supply chain. And I couldn't agree more with what Glenn said. I think we really need to focus on leapfrogging because, frankly speaking, I think investments in today's supply chain, there's only so much we can do to move the needle. In some respects, perhaps that ship has sailed. And so I think investing today in our supply chain is absolutely critical to keep the production of those future innovations, right here in the United States. Because again, as one of the speakers said just a moment ago, if we don't do it, someone else will. And of course, we're all aware of the massive public-private partnerships that are happening, not only in China, but also in the European Union, to a lesser extent, Japan and Korea.
Yeah. If we don't do it, we don't do these, we're bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Exactly. And now is the time to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that. Let me pop over to Lindsey. we're talking about stationary applications, obviously, with Doug, and I'm wondering if you have a view on what the unique sort of opportunities and challenges associated with the battery supply chain, either for stationary or for mobile, transportation.
Sure. I think I'm going to pair a little bit what Glenn and Doug had said too, but I think you look at energy storage itself. I mean, the growth of energy storage is gone from 2019 to 2020 5 times, and it's projected to go 10 times bigger by 2025, only 4 years later. So you're talking 2.7 gigawatt hours of installations in 2020 to 27 gigawatt hours in 2025, and then even 15 times bigger than that by the time you get to 2030. And I think the United States and the world has finally seen that really the missing link of a real green world is storage, if you look at the storage side of it. And I think the United States has done a pretty good job on sort of the downstream OEM, the money into some of the electric products, except the finished products. But I think Glenn and Doug said I'd say too, is you got to focus on mid and upstream. Look at the cell technology, and then derive the chemical and critical minerals from that, right? Because it doesn't matter what you make at the end of the day, as I talked earlier, the cell's a critical piece of all that. And then on top of that, I want to pair what Glenn also said, and he said it probably better than I can, but looking at sort of reuse and recycling, right? I think that's critical that we have partnerships with companies that are looking at recycling and looking at reuse. We've had that for over a year now, and we're trying to look at how do we design things to be able to, if not reuse it, then recycle as much as we can. And again, Senator, as you said at your opening statements, I think it's right now, there's 93 gigafactories in China. We have 4, and if the trend continues, there'd be 140 gigafactories in China by 2030. Europe is moving a little faster. They'll have 17. We may have 9 or 10. So for Core Power to get ahead of this trend, we will be announcing our new gigafactory, as I said, called the Coreplex very soon. But thank you very much.
We can hardly wait. We're all in. If you can preview it here, it's okay.
Let's do.
All right. Well, speaking of gigafactories, let me pop over to Joe. Developing this domestic supply chain for lithium batteries is important, obviously. You guys are doing a lot in that space. I'm wondering, how can we work with you? How do we accelerate really the process?
Well, thanks for asking. And I think the supply chain report hits on it a lot in the whole of government approach. It's what also drives the supply chain is the market and the demand. And one of the reasons why, frankly, China's ahead of the game is it's had better incentives and better standards to drive the EV revolution. So you really need to focus on not only the supply chain, but the consumer incentives that drive demand for electric vehicles or residential and commercial storage products. You need the performance standards that drive manufacturers to continue to innovate and to meet the environmental imperative. And then you need the full support, like you've like everyone here has voiced all the way up and down the supply chain to really develop the supply chain and the products. So I think the administration's hit on the right message and the right policies, and I think it's as much as we can do to enact it. As I think Doug said, now's the time. It's both the time because of the climate crisis and the time we need to deploy the technologies, but it's also the moment in time where we still have the ability to keep that innovation here and to keep the manufacturing here and really be a world leader, because we don't want to miss the boat.
Great. Yes, for sure. And of course, Tesla their history has a great public-private partnership with the federal government, given the original loan that was received from our loan programs office, which we're very proud of, and very proud that Tesla paid it all back. And it's a great example of what can happen if we have the right partners, right? JB, I want to make sure your announcement did not get buried. I'm wondering if you can describe today what the newsworthy thing is that your investment reveals. So maybe I want to give you a little bit of a moment to preview what that is and to get us excited about this.
Sure. Thanks for the tee up there. It's I mean, recycling is a, very economically competitive, already today in the United States. And I think it shocks a lot of people. I get the question constantly of, well, when will it be economic and how long is it going to take? But we can compete with the prices of mined materials today, and that's part of what's leading to this big expansion that we're doing. We've seen a massive amount of feedstock, coming, in our direction. And, as we start telling more people what we're doing and opening the doors to more material, it seems to come out of the woodwork. And a lot of this is not electric vehicle material yet. These are things like consumer electronics that you pointed out, and, all manner of lithium-ion containing devices. But the chemistry, the critical materials contained are basically the same as what we need in large-scale storage applications or electric vehicles. So, the announcement we're making is expanding our footprint here in Northern Nevada dramatically. We're expanding by almost 500,000 square feet. Our current processing facilities, and all of this is private funding to date. So what we've done with everything so far is basically doing this based on what we see coming and sort of having started that years ago. But it is I think a really significant job creator, a significant economic creator that this can achieve, and you're seeing it happen with some of these ramp ups in hiring. In terms of what the DOE can do, and I'd say the most important thing is really keeping a mind on that strategic plan and roadmap. The supply chain for a lithium-ion battery is complex, and it's frustrating at times that we may recycle materials that don't actually have a market in North America, and because we have gaps in that supply chain. So in some cases those materials have to go back to Asia in order to find a company that's actually doing the next stage of manufacturing. This is also true, of course, with even mined materials. So I think having that really clear-minded strategic plan view so that we can build that supply chain out without gaps is very important. And we have great strength on the innovation at the front end of it. Now we have, I think, growing strength in the vehicle manufacturing and even battery cell manufacturing, but there's still major gaps in the middle of all the critical materials and refining and synthesis along the way.
Very great. It's great that you guys are doubling down on this effort to do recycling. It's very forward looking, almost a leapfrog, if you will, over where we are right now. So thanks for that. Congressman Doyle and I, I'm sure, are very interested in knowing how to encourage investment in a way that helps our goals of equity, inclusion, and diversity. The American Jobs Plan asks that 40% of the investments be put toward communities that have been left behind. Often those are industrial communities, fossil communities, and communities of color. And we want to structure our investments in a way that incentivizes location decisions on the part of companies into communities that really have a great workforce and are hungry. And so this is that's a long preface to this question, and I don't know, Congressman Doyle, if you want to take a stab at it as well, but I am curious about, from the perspective of the private sector, about how we could, what you think you can do to help us in our goal to get significant equity investments in communities that may have been left behind. And Congressman Doyle, I'll flip it to you because I know Pennsylvania may be one of those states that has communities that are in that boat.
Yeah, thank you. When I think about West Virginia, Western Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio, Michigan, you go up through that whole corridor, and I see the anxiety, the economic anxiety that many workers have that are in the fossil fuel industry, that they may not have jobs in the future. We see that quite dramatically as we go up and down through the Rust Belt. And when you think about the car manufacturing industry is located in that same corridor that we're talking about, and the opportunity to see this transition as we move into a cleaner economy and environment, to be able to replace some of those fossil jobs with these manufacturing jobs that could be created if we move forward aggressively. I just think, as someone who grew up in Pittsburgh, both my father and grandfather were steel workers. And we saw what happened in the steel industry in the 70s in many communities that I represent. And some of them have still struggled to find, the kind of work they had that could support their families. So I think, this opportunity is critical. And then I also think we need to think about workforce training programs too, that are inclusive, that bring Black and Brown communities into the equation, and make sure that that training is provided. And I also think, in my neck of the woods, we involve our labor union forces too, because they have critical apprenticeship programs and training programs that they've been doing for years. And they also are a great equalizer in terms of pay disparities that take place in the industries. I hear a lot of people say, well, I'm working in the fossil fuel industry and I'm making this kind of a family sustaining wage, and I have health care and I have pensions. What kind of job exists in these new so-called, green economies? And there's skepticism there too. So I just think this is a tremendous opportunity. And I wish every member of Congress was in on this panel discussion today, because we really do need to do some education with members of Congress too, both in the House and Senate and in both parties. But clearly, tax credits for energy storage and 48C manufacturing credits and this grant program that we're talking about, I think is critical to the success of moving forward.
Amen. I know I asked it, and I so appreciate your foot stomping that. And I see Lindsey was nodding, and maybe I'll give you last word on this, Lindsey, on issues related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what we can do to further that.
Yeah, I think it's critical, right? I think it's critical to basically educate everybody too on this thing, and you roll to the energy storage comment by Congressman Doyle, right? All the money was going into basically, which is great, all the renewables, but we saw recently without storage, what happens.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think this is a fantastic time for the country, I think, right now.
It is, and we all have a responsibility. Let me flip it back to Kelly Speaks Bachman. Thank you all so much for this very rich discussion. We are all taking notes about what we need to do, and we're well on our way with this American Jobs Plan. But we got to execute, right? And we have to do it in partnership as we tweak it, as we add to it, and as we go along. So thank you for being our partners, Kelly.
Thank you. I would just like to thank you, Secretary Granholm and Congressman Doyle, for joining us in this really important conversation. This is such an important part of our new clean energy economy. And what an amazing discussion. I really appreciate the direct input that you all have provided us, and the suggestions that you've shared today. JB, pretty impressive, 500,000 square foot expansion. That's pretty cool. And Lindsey, almost an announcement. I suspect this will be the beginning of many really awesome announcements that we hope to hear from industry as we work to support you in your work in expanding energy storage for both the transportation and the stationary storage industries. So thank you everyone for taking your time today to participate. Thank you to our audience for tuning in, and we hope you all remain engaged. We look forward to working with you and to partnering with you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.